have to be so hard?
What specifically?
Being alive, let's start there.
You wish you weren't alive?
I wish it didn't hurt so much.
It hurts because you feel it, Joan. Because you're alive. You love people. That generates a lot of power, a lot of energy. Same kind of energy that binds atoms together. We've all seen what happens when you try to pry them apart.
We're trying to put together the writing staff for Joan of Arcadia. Usually writers' interviews take about 20 minutes if they go well. Every interview was about an hour long because people came in and they didn't just want to talk about writing. They wanted to talk about theology and philosophy and, the points that the show brings up. And they want to talk about their own beliefs that way. They want to talk about their own experiences. I really didn't have any criteria that I bring to choosing any writing staff, with the one exception that people had to be open to issues of spirituality. They didn't have to believe it. They didn't have to be anything but open. Because you really, that's really what we're doing here. We're just asking questions.
And action!
It's not a religious show. It's a show about spirituality. They're really different. It's all about keeping your options open, keeping your eyes open. See the world around you. Don't isolate yourself. Now, these are all kind of spiritual ideas that are very practical, that you can look at as an audience and say, yeah, that kind of makes sense. Why not?
When it comes to like life lessons and consequences, these are just basic human traits, human experiences that we go through. So I think that because of that, anybody can relate to it, whether you're a 14-year-old girl who's had her first boyfriend and breakup, or you're a 70-year-old woman who just lost her husband. Like, it can be anything.
There was nothing simplistic about it, and I think that was my fear, was that there would be something saccharine or simplistic, or that it would have all the answers. And what I loved about the show is that more than being a show about God or even man, to me it's a show about tolerance.
With Joan's relationship to the God character, whoever it may be, that becomes a catalyst sometimes for events and for things. But it's the interaction of life and people, and those of us who are mortal, the real people within the show, and what they have to deal with. That's the strength of the show. That's what it's about, and that's what the audiences relate to.
When I shot that bank robber, it was a righteous shooting, Ellen. I mean, I'm sorry I killed a man. I really am. But I don't doubt that it was necessary, that I had no other options. I miss that clarity.
Obviously, Joe Mantegna is someone who has done such incredible work and worked with such amazing people, and he brings that breadth of experience. But also, I think that he has a real inner sense of what he wants to do and the kind of stories that he wants to tell, and he really wants to do something important. He sort of brought that in the door, just really sort of endorsed the project by wanting to do it. And then just his lease on life is so amazing, and he just sort of reminds us all that we're very lucky to be doing good work.
Talking with Barbara about the concept of the show from the beginning, what was interesting, she explained to me how she felt there was a few things she wanted to explore. One was the whole idea of a father-daughter relationship. And then also the fact that I was a policeman wasn't just a coincidence, or wasn't just because, people like cops or something. By having my character, Will, be a policeman, gives Barbara a chance to tap into the dark side, to delve into that world that's dark and evil. So Will provides a lot of aspects of that within the show.
I've heard Barbara Hall say this before, that it's sort of the yin and yang. She wanted to show the dark sides of life and the stuff that Will has to deal with at work, and how that possibly plays into the fact that he is not religious and doesn't believe in God. That he has to go through every day and see people murdered and, raped and killed, and it's a horrible job, but that's part of life.
Dad, you killed someone?
I didn't mean, it wasn't my victim. He was shooting. Can we just drop this?
I think that Will's character is just very strong and courageous and an honorable character, very honorable, just as Joe is.
Joe was on a short list of leading men that I had always wanted to work with, and hadn't. And he's just this extraordinary actor who's always there for you. I feel I can go anywhere with him in terms of the work, and he'll always be right there.
While I was waiting to hear whether or not we were going to make it, Joe Mantegna somehow discovered it. It ended up in his pile, and he read it and wanted to do it. So Joe came to me. So that was the first thing that happened before we cast Amber, before anything. And then after that, it was given to Mary, and Mary wanted to do it. So before we'd really even gotten started, before we'd ever gotten an order, we had these two incredible actors attached to it.
I'm a cop, Joan. This is when I start reading you your rights.
Will, I think I should talk to Joan alone.
Remember when I took you on the pony ride?
Will. I was not bound and determined to do an hour drama series, but I was open to the idea. I read several of them, and there was just nothing about them that particularly excited me. And then when I read Joan, I thought, you know, this is something I'd be proud to do and that would interest me. It was really the writing. I mean, that's what it comes down to. I mean, I know what I can bring to something, and I know I will try to surprise myself and do the best job I can. But what is different every time for me is that script. What is the writing like? And with Joan of Arcadia, the writing from the get-go was just so special.
I think that Mary is a lot like the more artistic side of Helen, who is has a little quirkier and a little outside the edges. She's very steadying force too, and she's very nurturing and maternal. But I think what we really managed to capture of her personality is that aspect of her. Mary herself is an artist, which I didn't know actually. I mean, the character of Helen was always going to be an artist, and then we discovered that she shared all these traits with Mary.
Mary Steenburgen is just about as warm and wonderful and sweet and giving as you ever would hope. And those two people, Mary and Joe, are so talented, yet they have never kind of pulled rank or treated Amber or Michael and I as anything other than their complete peers.
It's like the best acting class I could ever be a part of, is working with these two. And I've gotten some of the best advice from the two of them. Like, I know they'll just tell me straight up if they think I suck. And I know when I'm getting a compliment from them that it's genuine. They're just veterans. I mean, just watching them work, it's like, that's how you do it. That's, if someone wants to know how to be an actor, just look at these two. I mean, they're unbelievable.
So what were you doing in a hotel room with Adam and no books?
Do we really have to go there?
We're already there.
Do you really think?
What do you think we think?
Of course we think. What would you think?
Well, is this a real conversation or an Abbott and Costello routine?
Amber Tamlin came in to read very early on for the part, and as we were reading people, I suddenly realized that this was such an impossible part to cast. I was asking so much of this young actress to carry this show and be Joan and be believable and be funny, but be as dramatic as she needed to be, because you're dealing with God. You know, you can't deal with a more serious subject, but at the same time, she had to be funny, and she had to talk to God as a teenager would. She just understood the part completely.
Normally, when an actor goes in and they, read for something, there's several different ways you can do it. You can play it darker, you can play it lighter. There's lots of different elements that you can add. I literally had only one thing that I could do with this character. That was it, and either it was gonna work or it wasn't. I saw that Joan was probably somewhere deep inside, like, obsessive-compulsive neurotic. She was very frantic, very stubborn, but yet very empathetical and intelligent, and just an incredibly complex, layered character. And so I just tried to go in with all of that, and I think the process for me was a series of, 2 or 3 auditions, and the second one I went in and read with Joe Mantegna.
These are just not just incredibly professional and talented actors, they're just incredible human beings. And they're a pleasure to be around, and we even joke about it. I mean, I think Amber and I just yesterday were on a set and we're saying, isn't it weird that we all get along so well? We all like each other. But you make a movie, it's a short tunnel, really. I mean, in a way. I mean, you start it, you do it, and you finish it, and then you're on to something else. You do a successful television series, you might be around these people for a good portion of your life.
This is already the longest job I've ever had, because I've done movies and I've done plays, but I've never worked on something for a couple of years, So in that sense, this is sort of new to me, but watching her day after day, she constantly amazes me.
Barbara and I never really sat down and said, this is how Joan's gonna be. I think that it was one of those things where I came in and read for her and she said, that's what Joan's gonna be. There's a lot of me reading into what she writes and then giving it my own little twist on it, and I think that somewhere inside she sees that when she writes, and she either likes it or she doesn't like it, and what she does like, she incorporates in the writing.
These are pictures of my son. That's the part of you that belongs to me and no one else.
Well, I'm not that kid anymore. I'm not even who that kid would have grown up to become.
What are you talking about? You're exactly what that boy has become.
No! I'm this!
The character of Kevin was always going to be in a wheelchair because what I wanted was for this family to be haunted by something that was irreparable, something that they had to live with. Because from the beginning, what I always said about Joan of Arcadia was that we are not going to try to create or characterize a God who exists in a benign universe, because I'm not interested in that God. Jason's character and his accident was always a reminder that this family had been through something extremely traumatic and that they were being asked to go on in spite of that.
There are actors who are paraplegic in real life, and if there's a part written for a paraplegic, it seems kind of counterintuitive to give it to an able-bodied actor. But I talked to Barbara about it, and she was saying how there were flashbacks and dream sequences where Kevin has to walk and everything like that. And so that became kind of my mission, was to really try to represent as realistically as possible what this is like for this guy.
So have you done this on paralyzed people before?
A few million times.
You ever see anybody get some of their feeling back?
You mean neuroregeneration? Not much, no.
But you've seen it.
I think that the producer's job is to create the bubble for the actors to work in. And I don't think anyone would be able to work with us to create this bubble without believing that there's possibilities there, that there is a reality there that is you're recreating, really, as far as this world. But by creating this bubble, you now create this environment that allows your actors to create three-dimensional characters that an audience will follow, will believe in, will love.
Nothing feels contrived. It just feels like characters talking. And I think one of the ways that one of the places that the writers excel, one of the many, is their ability to make dialogue that sounds kind of like just people, shooting the breeze, not really talking about that much, but saying so much underneath.
Man, it smells good. Too bad I have to go.
You're telling me this now?
Sorry, I didn't know you were gonna do a whole mom thing.
Well, neither did I.
I just want my lab notebook.
Dude, less pathetic.
Every year there's this thing in Hollywood called pilot season, and a pilot is just a show that may or may not be put on television, and most of them aren't. But everyone from all over the country flies in for pilot season, and Joan of Arcadia was just another pilot. You get scripts for pilots all over the place, and I started to read the script, and then at around page 9 or so, when the guy says, "I'm God," I was like, okay, I think I see where this is going. Then I kept reading, and I realized that this is one of the most amazing scripts I've ever read for television, movie, play, whatever. It was brilliant.
I think he has a very well-defined role, and I think the hardest thing for him to play is we've asked him to be a character, play a character who is a genius, and to learn this dialogue and these concepts of quantum physics and talk about them as if he studies them every day.
I've kind of been dying to talk to someone about M-brain theory, and
Think of it as Socratic parenting.
what I want to do is make a railgun that lessens the power requirements of the capacitor potential for its chemical bonds being the forces that hold atoms together. Polynomial flashcards for the trimathlon meet. Calculus, trigonometry, the real bad boy, probability theorem.
I really do feel like an older brother to Michael. I remember one of the sweetest moments was we were about 5-6 episodes in, and he came up to me one time and he kind of asked me about, he liked this girl and he didn't know what to tell her, and I know what to say, but I still pretended like, the older brother, and gave him the little bit of advice that I could. But He's just a great guy. I mean, I look at them and I feel so proud. I do feel like an older brother to both of them.
We've always said that if one of us didn't have the sick, twisted humor that we all seem to share, it wouldn't have worked. Like, we would have been killing each other by this point, because the jokes and the continuous talking and the, the practical jokes, just everything that we do to each other, I think would not stand if just one of us was slightly off.
It's just a joy to watch the five of them work together as a family. I think that if you saw them on set when the camera's not rolling, you would think they are a family. Because they're always fooling around, they're always messing around, they're always laughing. Jason is always making everybody else hysterical. And they relate to each other, they care about each other, they want to take care of each other.
Maybe just hold up Mary to put salad on until each person gets
I'm not going near the freaking salad. Shut up.
There are people that say thank you about talking about the idea of God without choosing a religion. Thank you for making me feel like I can be a person of faith without making me feel horrible that I don't go to a particular church. It's really been a huge range, but it's all said with a great deal of passion and a sort of thoughtfulness that is extraordinary.
I think that when you have a non-denominational show that is not, strictly basing its theories around one religion or one philosophical or existential idea, it's very easy when you base storylines on real life things, real life situations. I think it's easy for anybody to relate, because no matter who you are, somebody's experienced something that we've played out.
I'm a firm believer in that you get out of life, in a way, what you put into it. And if you exude something positive, it should be no surprise that you, in a way, attract that positive kind of energy back toward yourself. So I think, I've talked about this even with crew members, and we all feel the same way, that we feel good about what we're doing.
The reason I love to work in television is sometimes what happens when you bring all the right people to the party is that it expands from that, and your vision becomes larger. And of course, it has life now, and the family has life now, and the whole question of God and his or her relationship with Joan has expanded, and it's become something more complex than we started out with. So that's always rewarding. But in that, I wanted to do a show that in which absolutely everything about the show and about the family, about these characters, are normal and average, except that there is a communication with God. I do think we managed to achieve that.